Hello and welcome to week 3 of Introduction to Early Childhood Education. So I hope you're enjoying the material so far and starting to get into a kind of rhythm for how you're going to manage this course throughout the semester. So hopefully you're seeing how I have things set up, and I try and keep it as consistent as possible so that each week you kind of know what's expected, where to find things, so you can keep up with everything. So last week we started the section on the who of early childhood education, starting of course with the children, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading all of your discussion board postings on play. That video really hits hard with me because I do remember growing up and being outside all of the time. We were never allowed to just sit inside and be on an electronic device, which they didn't even have that many of them back then. But we truly did have a lot of free play. But as you know, this generation is a little bit different, and we see free play going by the wayside, and there's much more structured play, whether it's at school during PE, and of course with the amount of sports that children are playing now. So I really appreciated how it seemed that the video spoke to you as well, and that it is important that we give children free play, the opportunity to just use their imaginations, use what's available to them, instead of always feeling like we have to plan everything for them. So thank you for your comments on that particular discussion board posting. And so this week we're going to move into the next group of people having to do with early childhood education, and that is the families. So you are going to find as you go through this chapter that there's a lot of different types of families, family structures, that you're going to actually interact with. You're going to get your first taste of a theory, as we're looking at the family systems theory by Bronfenbrenner. But really what I want you to take away from this chapter is that not only do we need to value the families, and that is whatever form the families take, but we also need to get them as involved as possible. But as you know, there's going to be a lot of times that family members can't come into the classroom during the school hours, but there's lots of different ways that you can have them involved. There are things that you can send home that they could do. There are things that maybe they could do after hours. But you need to try and have as much of an open door policy as possible, because we know that as teachers we can't do it all, and it really does take a village, and we need to make sure that families know that we're on their side, that we are all trying to work towards the same goal. And that's really what I hope that you take away from this chapter. So for this week, what I wanted you to do, when you go into the course content and you come to the families, you're going to see that again, it's going to be set up the same way that it has been each week. So we're going to be talking about families. So here's the PowerPoint for the chapter, but the other thing that I want you to do after you've read the chapter and reviewed the PowerPoint is I want you to read the NAEYC Code of Ethics. This is actually in the appendix in your textbook, but here's a PDF version of it as well, and I would encourage you to save it because it is going to be something that you may need to refer to later. But as you know, NAEYC is the top tier organization in early childhood education, and so they have put out an ethical position statement that really talks about our responsibilities to children, to colleagues, and to families. And this really is where you're going to be taking your discussion board posting from this week. So I've made it available to you in a PDF version as well. So for your assignments, of course, you're going to be reading the chapter, you're going to be reviewing the PowerPoint, reading over the Code of Ethics, and then your discussion board is going to center around the importance of the family and what our role is, our ethical obligation to families is. And then finally, your inclusion project is due at the end of this week, which means by midnight on Sunday. As I mentioned before, you do have a grace day, which means that it is going to close for submission on midnight on Monday. However, the sooner that you get it in, the sooner I get it graded. So I always appreciate if you're able to get things in early, but the due date is midnight on Sunday. So here's the link to the family involvement, where I'm asking you to not only read the Code of Ethics, really paying particular attention to ethical obligations for the families and what you think is most important. And remember that you need to post your own response and then respond to at least 2 of your classmates. Remember, great job, I agree with you, that doesn't get your total points. If you read this week's announcement, you're going to find that the way that you get your discussion board posting points, half of them come from your own post, and that means that you fully answered the question. It was more than one sentence. You referred back to whatever it was that I asked you to view, but you also need to respond to at least 2 of your classmates. Which means that the sooner that you're able to get your posting in, the sooner classmates can start responding to you. So just keep that in mind. I always encourage students, try and have your own posting done by Wednesday, because then that gives the rest of the week for you to have time to respond to other people and for them to respond to you. However, I don't hold you to that as long as everything is done by midnight on Sunday. And then again, here is where you can submit your inclusion project. You can submit it here. You can also find it in last week's folder, and you can also find it up here in the assignments. But the one thing I did want to point out to you is when you do submit something and you attach a file, please make sure and try and have it in either a Microsoft Word version or a PDF. If you do your work on an Apple product, that's fine, but make sure that you save it in a Microsoft Word or a PDF file, because my computer does not open the Pages extension. And so all that's going to happen is I'm going to have to email you to say, can you please submit it in a different format? So if you just from the beginning have it in a Microsoft Word or PDF format, that would be really helpful. So once you submit it, it goes directly into the grade book. I get a little exclamation point that says that it's been submitted, and then I can grade it. And when I grade it, you will see that I'll have comments that go along with your grade. If this is your first time taking an online class and you're kind of nervous about whether or not something was submitted, feel free to send me an email and say, hey, I just submitted my inclusion project. Can you just make sure that it went through? I understand, especially for those of you who are taking an online class for the first time, that it can be a little scary to feel like I did it and I think I submitted it, but I'm not sure that it went through. I'm happy to take a look and let you know if it went through or not, especially this first time. So I think that takes care of everything for this week. Again, keep up the good work. You're doing a wonderful job of really getting into those discussion board questions. And I love the little community that we're already building, even though we're just online. So as always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. Again, email is always the best way to get me, and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. So have a fantastic week, and I will see you in week 4.